The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Del Mar TV Foundation or the City of Del Mar.
Del Mar Hot Topics, where we discuss issues that are important to you. And now your host, Richard Levesque.
Welcome to Del Mar Hot Topics, the election special, and I'm your host, Richard Levesque. We have 4 candidates vying for 2 seats on the City Council, ready to serve our small community's myriad of often competing viewpoints. I'd like to welcome our candidates, Crystal Crawford, Laura DeMarco, Jerry Finnell, and Michael Wynn. Welcome. As some of you know, Jerry Finnell is quarantined due to the effect of chemotherapy on his immune system, and you really need an immune system here in politics. But he is with us on the telephone. The format tonight, to ensure fairness, is as follows. Each candidate will have 1 minute for opening comments, followed by the candidates responding to questions that have been submitted by the voting public, including our studio audience. Our timekeeper will hold up a green card to signal that the clock is running. A yellow card is a 10-second warning, and the red card indicates that time is up. We're very pleased to have a studio audience, but in the interest of fairness to all the candidates, I'd like you to be mindful not to distract the candidates by applauding, heckling, or speaking from the floor. So, if you're all ready, let's get started with your upcoming remarks. We'll kick off in alphabetical order. Crystal Crawford, from the floor, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Richard. As some of you know, I was raised in Alexandria, Louisiana, but Del Mar has been my adopted home since 1992. And in 1994, I was asked to serve on the Design Review Board, which I did with pride for 4 years, including 3 years as the chair. Since 1998, I've served as a dedicated and hardworking member of the City Council. I was mayor in 2001, and I'm mayor again this year. I have a long list of accomplishments for the City of Del Mar and a reputation for being a listener, a problem solver, a consensus builder, and, according to Logan Jenkins, green-leaning. I'm especially proud to be part of a city administration where the residents who were recently surveyed reported a 96% satisfaction rate with their quality of life. One little known fact to share with you, I have never missed a council meeting during my entire 8 years on council. I've been privileged to have your trust and your confidence, and I'm here this evening because I would be honored to serve for another term.
Thank you, Crystal. Laura?
Hi. I'm Laura DeMarco, and I've lived here for 19 years. My husband and I moved here in November 1987, right after the 87 market crash. And we started our life here together because of the Del Mar train station. My husband commuted to LA. I commuted to downtown. We had 5 kids. I spent 18 years helping build a global investment firm. And for the last 3 years since my retirement, I've been focused on community service, both here in Del Mar in co-founding the Friends of Del Mar Parks, which is the committee of the Del Mar Foundation, specifically dedicated to the acquisition of the Shores School property for the community. I also chair the Investment Advisory Committee of the Del Mar Foundation, with their Lagoon Endowment Fund, which benefits the long-term lagoon to make sure that the mitigation works. And the other thing that I have is I have a lot of good solutions to some of the problems that we face in terms of traffic, fiscal resources, as well as the looming tunnel that will come under Del Mar.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Jerry, you're up.
Good evening to my fellow council candidates and to members of the public in attendance this evening. I trust that we are going to be able to hear each other okay. As Richard mentioned, my medical situation, which was diagnosed just over 2 weeks ago, prevents me from being with you this evening. But I'm delighted to participate in this debate by telephone. I am pleased to have already served 4 years on our city council. And because of the encouragement from so many residents to seek a second term, I'm actually excited about the prospect of serving again. This is another opportunity to use my professional, financial, and accounting experience, and now my considerable council experience, to continue to serve the community for another term. I look forward to tonight's opportunity to answer your questions and bring greater clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Were you trying to tell me I had 10 seconds?
I was.
Because I wasn't able to figure that out. So
Perfect. I will try to be a little more intrusive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. First question, 60 seconds. All of you get to Michael. I am so sorry. You have an opening remark.
Well, thank you,
I'm so
Richard.
sorry, Michael.
It's all right. I'll take another 10 seconds for that.
Yeah.
I am currently the director of San Diego Radio Theater, and we will be starting our next session on October 17th in Rancho Santa Fe. And my educational background is in radio and television production. And after doing that for about 20 years in Los Angeles, I made a quality of life decision. I decided to move to Del Mar permanently. I'd been coming here to visit since '75. So I moved here in '83, and I also changed what I was doing in my life, and I started working in community development. I co-founded the San Diego Community Housing Corporation. I did the high-speed ferry demonstration project proving offshore travel is possible in Southern California. But most importantly for Del Mar, I was invited to join our Railroad Advisory Committee, and I saw the danger that the railroad, the development of the coastal track, the double tracking of the coastal railroad would be for Del Mar. I organized a committee in the county to prevent the double tracking of the San Diego River Bridge some years ago, and I saw that the project was still going on and it wasn't being addressed by the council. I decided to take the next step, which was to provide leadership.
Thank you. Our first question, which will be first to you, Michael, 60 seconds. In your opinion, what is the most important issue facing Del Mar, and what would you do about it if you were elected? 60 seconds.
The most important issue really is this threat of this tunnel. It is something that will kill business. It will completely modify the entrances at both ends of the city. It will reduce property values. You will have something like 90,000 trucks of earth being moved in and out of this area to get these tunnels built. You have no idea what could happen. All of the things that we're concerned about now are minuscule compared to what that will do for our quality of life.
Okay. Thank you. Laura?
Actually, I agree with Michael on that, because one of the things, if you look at the financial forecast of the city, which I have, there's a variety of scenarios here, and all of them assume the property taxes would go up between revenues between 10 and 8% annually, and a lot of other things that would just be thrown out because we wouldn't have a vibrant business district for about 5 to 10 years while they build the thing. But the current issue is how we're managing our current capital expenditures. Right now, our operating budget is we are balanced only because we are not sufficiently reserving properly for the looming $122 million needs for our long-term infrastructure to maintain our beaches, roads, bridges, and other public facilities.
Thank you, Laura. Crystal?
Thank you, Richard. I think the biggest issue facing Del Mar is very similar to the one that the city faced when it first became a city. It's how to manage impacts from outside our city. We've heard from our residents already that traffic is their number one concern. In walking the community recently, I've heard from folks down in the beach area right after after Labor Day about the impacts from all the beach visitors, the fact that they are leaving trash on our beaches, on our streets, the fact that they're rude. And again, this is not a new issue, it's a recurring one. But I think we have to continue our focus on updating our circulation element and determining how we as a city can really try to make the best of a situation that unfortunately we cannot ever end, but we can try to manage how people affect our quality of life when they come here to visit, hopefully spend money in our city, or use our city as a thoroughfare as they try to get to wherever they're going at the beginning or the end of the day.
Thank you, Crystal. Jerry, 60 seconds.
My choice would be the finance and the capital finance plan. I must start by saying I am optimistic about Del Mar's financial future. I recently put in the mail a financial plan, some of you may have received it today, which outlines a common sense approach to satisfying the funding requirements for Del Mar's long-term infrastructure challenges. It starts by instituting a limit on annual expenditure growth, initially set at a rate of 4% per year. When you combine that with conservative estimates of revenue growth, that will yield the needed $64 million for capital projects over the next 20 years. And that's based on no new taxes, no arbitrary staff reductions, and no curtailment of resident services. Del Mar's financial
10 seconds.
condition remains strong, and I'll get to that a little bit more later.
Thank you, Jerry. Next question starts with you, Laura. 60 seconds. Do you support the growth of commerce along Camino del Mar, and how will you make that happen or not?
If you look at our sales tax revenues, basically only now have they come back to what they were in 9/11. Unfortunately, I don't know about you all, but I try to the extent possible, shop in Del Mar, and I've talked to a lot of the shopkeepers, and what they're really excited about the fact that the revitalization of Del Mar is now led by the residents. It includes the commercial property owners, and it's no longer, the city work study where they spent, over $100,000. It was budgeted up to $500,000 to do things like put a goat farm at the entrance, the fairgrounds. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a fourth-generation San Diegan, and my family was instrumental, actually, in the revitalization of Little Italy, which was destroyed by the 5 freeway. So Little Italy, for those of you who haven't been down there, is a great success story. Obviously, Del Mar has a different character. We want to keep it small, charming, and resident serving.
Thank you, Laura. Crystal.
Thank you, Richard. I certainly support the revitalization effort that's been ongoing for a number of years. And again, this is not a new problem for Del Mar. We've been losing population and losing businesses in the community for over 20 years. But thankfully, the model that the Del Mar Village Association adopted several years ago seems to be working really well. We have an equal number of residents, property owners, and business owners working together to try to diagnose what the problems are in our downtown area and try to develop solutions for that. We now have projects that are coming online that I think are going to bring even more energy to our commercial areas and provide real opportunities for us to see new business in town and new places for us as residents as well as visitors to enjoy. So I'm very optimistic and looking forward to future developments.
Thank you, Crystal. Jerry, you're up.
Yes, I've been an advocate for revitalization from the very outset. I was on the initial board of directors of the DMVA. I think it's very important for the city to play an active role in supporting the DMVA. Residents, after all, want their sales taxes to remain in Del Mar. They don't want them to go elsewhere. So the primary goal is to promote a robust village business district, providing financial support to the city and resident-serving businesses to meet the needs of our residents. The city is already providing financial support, some of it in the form of matching grants, making planning staff available to assist the DMVA with projects, and arranging for economic development expertise where it's needed. So revitalization is really near the top of my list. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Michael?
All right, we have to get beyond truthiness now. The revitalization project started with an attempt to develop the City Hall property and the Del Mar Shores property. And as a result of a lot of complaint from residents, that got stopped. Revitalization was then metamorphosed into a project to deal with the failing business community, which is failing because there aren't enough people to actually use these resident serving businesses, and they had to give up ship. And what we have now is a development of a tourist industry business in Del Mar. So I'd like the vitality of Old Del Mar back. I really miss Old Del Mar. But I have a different view of how that could be done. I have no problem with what's going on. I just don't think it's been very creative, and I don't think it's included the potential of the fairgrounds for helping us to deal with the needs of the business community without having to create the fairgrounds within Del Mar through those kinds of activities. And I also was involved with Little Revitalization and gave Barone and Galasso their start in managing properties there.
Thank you, Michael. Next 60-second question starts with Crystal. How would you characterize the city's finances, and what would you do to improve them?
Well, the finances are stable. We have a balanced budget, and we have since I've been on council for the last 8 years, and even before then. We have adequate reserves. We have just recently this year taken a first crack at a long-term capital assessment plan that looks at our needs and our long-term financing issues. So we have a very conservative council that carefully manages with, of course, the city manager and finance director's assistance, our city budget. Even after 9/11, we were able to continue with some capital projects, although, as has been pointed out, we have just now, this year, regained our pre-9/11 revenues as far as sales tax and TOT go. So we were hamstrung by that, but we are recovering, and we do have plans for our future that, of course, require input from residents like you in order to prioritize our projects.
Thank you, Crystal. Jerry?
Yes, with my financial hat on, I must tell you that I think that Del Mar's financial situation remains very strong for a city of only 4,500 people. We have controlled spending. We have conservatively balanced budgets. We have preserved adequate operating and contingency reserves. We have very conservative investment policies. We have fully funded employee post-retirement benefits. And we have a solid AA credit rating. Now, all of these things permit us to move forward with the 20-year plan that the council approved at our last budget workshop. And if the council agrees with me in approaching this through a controlled spending rate,
10 seconds, Jerry.
We will achieve the objective. And so the bottom line is it's in pretty good shape.
Thank you, Jerry. Michael?
Well, I think it's very, very funny. Yes, we're regaining tourist revenues, but then is tourist revenue what's going to be driving the development of our city? Is that what we want? Yes, we're keeping our revenues balanced, but we're renting our beaches. We're putting up red light cameras. We're putting fines so that we can support the government by fining people more and raising permits costs. We have parking meters that run 7 days a week, the only city in the region. I think that we've made some very important financial errors in terms of being conservative. I think the capital projects we're facing, for instance, buying the bridge for $1 that turns out to be a $20 million liability. For instance, all the money that's being spent now on litigation over the Del Mar Shore School. I'm confident that we have a competent staff. I'm confident we have a competent staff in the city to manage our financial needs. I think we need a change of leadership, and that's why I'm running for city council.
Thank you, Michael. Laura?
It's all great and good to plan, but we have some really big emergencies that if you care about the quality of life in Del Mar, you need to address right now. And one is the 21st Street pump station immediately, because Carl Hilliard went down in that thing and he said that the gauges on there you could sell on Antiques Roadshow. For those of you who've been involved in the Shores property, you know how important the Kirchhoff family is to Del Mar. Well, they're the one who built our entire water and sewer system between 1906 and 1940. And we have an aged system that is in dire need of replacement. We have not reserved for it. It's a $5 to $6 million hit that we need to make now. You know, we are spending all this money on improving the lagoon and the restoration of the lagoon, and last year we were an inch away from overflowing the entire lagoon. So we need to look at how we're spending money now. The second thing is we need, sorry.
Okay,
ran out of
you'll
time.
get a chance at the end.
Okay.
Next question. We're going to start with you, Jerry. We all agree that traffic's a real problem. Now, be specific. What would you do to encourage or discourage traffic through our city? Jerry?
Well, when it comes to traffic, clearly we haven't solved the traffic problem, but we've made some notable progress. The Stratford Court experiment was judged as being very successful by the residents that live on Stratford, and the Crest Road experiment that's in process as we speak has strong promise, I think. Experimentation will be the key to solving neighborhood traffic and safety problems. And resident input is essential. I have served on council subcommittees on both the Stratford Court and the Crest Road experiments. I would like to use this experience to provide leadership for other neighborhood traffic challenges facing our city. And I would very much like to participate in the update of the circulation element of our community plan.
10 seconds, Jerry.
For next year. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Michael.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a really interesting question because the traffic is an impact that's caused by a a Leviathan called the I-5 freeway. And what we need is, Goliath is the word. We need a David to fight the Goliath. And the Goliath is really Sandag and Caltrans. The way this city has acted in Sandag and Caltrans is to produce a result where we have no alternative transportation to the car in the entire region, and we have no one saying anything about it. Now, I think that's really important for people to understand that it's going to get worse. It's going to get much worse unless there's a different form of transportation than the car. Meanwhile, we've closed our train station, you see? So instead of having a council which is focusing only on trying to get ways we can accommodate the problem, we need a council that's being aggressive in the region to find solutions and demand solutions.
Thank you, Michael. Crystal.
Thank you, Richard. Traffic, as I've mentioned before, is a recurring theme in the city of Del Mar. It's why we're a city. Unfortunately, the traffic impacts come from outside of us, and even though folks would love it if we could put up a gate, some anyway, on either end of town, that's not an option for us. So we really have to figure out a way to manage the impacts. And this city, just to respond to a comment by Mr. Nguyen, this city council took a position against the widening of I-5. Unfortunately, that didn't stop it from happening. But as a policy matter, our council has consistently supported less concrete and more transit options and trying, again, to manage the impacts. We do need to update the circulation element, as Mr. Fennell has mentioned. That will allow us to get input from all neighborhoods in the community and to really look at what are the changes that we can make that will solve the problem or manage the problem without adversely or unfairly impacting folks in other parts of the community.
Thank you, Crystal. Next question, 30-second question. Start with you, Michael.
You want me to...
Oh, Laura, I'm so sorry. I've done that twice today.
Okay,
sorry.
okay. The most important thing to look at on the traffic problem is to look at what the source of it is, which is basically Camino Del Mar is not working as a major artery in our town. And what ends up happening is even residents as well as commuters you look at for shortcuts all through town. And with the GPS systems now, they become more widely available to the general public. You know, Crest has a cut through when everything on Camino Del Mar is backed up all past the Torrey Pines Bridge, so, and the freeway too. So we really need to focus that circulation element. I'm glad the council is going to focus on, but meanwhile, what we need to be very careful of is unintended consequences for good intentions. And that is, if you go down and talk to people on Haska and Luneta, they're very concerned about what's happening without updating the Camino del Mar corridor. What you're going to end up doing is shifting traffic that would have gone on Crest now onto their streets. And so what we really need to do is focus on spending money wisely to where it has the most impact. And the $35,000 that's spent on Crest already, we could have solved the Camino del Mar problem.
Thank you.
And helped the whole city.
We have a 30-second question, starting with you, Michael. Do term limits improve the quality of representative government?
Yes, and that's why we have it for our Congress, and that's why we need it in Del Mar. We don't need career politicians in a city this size. We need ways to involve more people. We need to actually reduce the term to 2 years so more people who are as proficient and talented as the people who live in this community can participate. A lot of people can't give 4 years, but they could give 2. And we probably need a limit of, say, 3 terms, 6 years maximum, so that we can have more ideas and more accountability. If you don't like someone after 2 years, fine. Don't elect them. Get someone else in. Shorter string.
Next, Laura.
Term limits actually, they're not applied to Congress yet, and that might be a source of our problems there, but at the federal level. But here, I'm not so sure about it. And the reason why is because I think people like Crystal and Jerry and a lot of other prior councils have really good, dedicated public service. I think the issue is what skill set is needed to carry Del Mar to the future. I mean, in the past city councils have done a great job of creating our quality of life, but with the financial issues and the pressures in Del Mar right now and coming from around us, we need people who can mobilize and understand the financial picture more dramatically.
Thank you, Laura. Crystal?
I do not support term limits at any level. I think voters exercise term limits already by deciding who should remain and who should go. We've unfortunately been penalized by term limits in the state of California, which I believe is part of our problem in Sacramento, because right about the time you learn what's going on and how to best represent your constituents, you're gone.
Thank you, Crystal. Jerry, 30 seconds.
Yes, I do not support term limits. I think they're a complete failure. I think the state has realized that and will soon abandon term limits. All it does is encourages musical chairs. It's a solution looking for a problem. Voters have a say on every ballot issue, and if they don't like what's happening, all they have to do is vote somebody else in.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. We have another 30-second question. Starting with you, Laura. Should Del Mar be emptying the storm drains into a treatment system instead of directly into the ocean?
That would actually be very optimal. My daughter is a surfer. You guys might have seen her go down 15th Street every day with her surfboard under, and it would be best if that went directly into our sewage treatment. But the big issue is that we have no more excess capacity in our current sewage system. And one of the things I'm exploring and talking to people at the San Alejo JPA, which is a combination of Encinitas and Solana Beach, is actually linking up with them, which would cut our sewer rates by half, and more importantly, bring first world water and sewage treatment versus what we're doing in San Diego, where they pump it 2 miles off the coast of Point Loma.
Thank you, Crystal. Jerry.
Clean water regulations pretty much tell us what we have to do in this regard. And putting it into the sewer system currently is not in the cards, as Laura pointed out, because there is no more capacity. The city of San Diego simply can't handle anymore. But we've looked at San Jaleo as an option, and when you figure the capital cost to put in a sewer line from Del Mar to link up with that, you're talking tens of millions of dollars. So while I would like a better treatment of that, I don't see that as a viable option for the city.
Thank you. Crystal.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, in an ideal situation, it would be great to treat our stormwater before it goes into the ocean. Unfortunately, that's not an option for us right now. As Mr. Fennell mentioned, we have several times in the last 10 years or so looked into connecting with San Alejo, as well as getting our water from another northern source, but that's not going to work for us at this point. But we should continue looking at that as an option, because at some point it may work best for us. But we simply don't have the infrastructure or the ability to do what you suggest, but we should keep that in mind.
Thank you. Michael.
So now you see why I'm running for council. I have the same problem with the fact that no one is addressing the area of beach sand replenishment down there. I'm one of the only people here, I'm the only person here I know who's in that water almost every morning of the year, all year round. And I'm tired of hearing excuses. Everybody admits that it's something that we need to do. When Andy Schooler was on this council, he was trying to do it. You need a David to fight a Goliath. You need someone who's willing to actually confront the issue and raise it to public attention on a regional basis, not just within Del Mar, to make changes in this area, because we will never have the money to do it, and we'll have the problem.
Thank you, Michael. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Did you miss it?
Get to know your candidates for Del Mar City Council. Watch Hot Topics election specials, including a forum discussion and personal interviews with each candidate. Programs repeat 3 times each week until the November 7th election. No time for TV? Watch this and other great programming from the Del Mar TV website. And don't forget to vote.
Welcome back to Del Mar Hot Topics election special. I'm your host, Richard Levac. And with us are 4 candidates, Jerry Fennell by phone, Crystal Crawford, Laura DeMarco, and Michael Wynn. We have a question starting with you, Crystal. 60 seconds. Should city staff or services be cut or expanded? Which ones and how far?
All right, thank you. Well, the vast majority of our budget is staffing. And certainly, if the community wants to reduce staffing, then that's something that the City Council needs to hear. And that's why we have goal setting and our budget workshops each year. And we go through the budget very carefully, category by category. But that's not something that the City Council's heard yet. We haven't heard from the residents that they want to cut public safety, that they want to reduce our fire safety, our lifeguards, or our law enforcement from the sheriffs. In fact, we hear the contrary. We hear people coming to council and asking for more enforcement services, which of course is very expensive. We have looked at and we have at ways to reduce staffing, and we have taken advantage over the last several years of positions that have opened up when folks have retired, or for example, when we recently started consolidating our communications for fire safety, we were able to eliminate a position in the department. So the council and the managers are constantly looking for opportunities to reduce cost and reduce staffing, and we take advantage of those opportunities.
Thank you, Crystal. Jerry, 60 seconds.
Staff levels was a topic that was discussed during the 2005 budget workshop when I was mayor. And we researched and reported back during that workshop regarding questions about how we stacked up with Solana Beach and Carmel. And I have to tell you that after we made apples-to-apples adjustments, for example, Solana Beach has no water, no sewer, and therefore a very small public works department. Carmel only has 1 lifeguard because it's too cold up there to swim. The bottom line was that we feel that Del Mar staffing was appropriate and continues appropriate. Also, when you do this sort of thing, staffing analyses need to be done very objectively and carefully. Del Mar does provide services to the equivalent of about 15,000 residents, but my plan will address this by putting a growth restriction on expenditures going forward.
Thank you, Jerry. Michael.
Yes, I think that one of the things that makes our budget so expensive is the fact that we have subjective planning processes. And so we have endless hearings and costing people who are submitting applications tons of money, and also causing us to have a planning staff that is unusually, I don't know if that accounts for the fact that you have a staff for 15,000 residents instead of 2,000 homes, which might be 4,000 residents. But I do know that that's a serious part of the budget where we could, just by cleaning up our planning and permitting process, reduce costs. I think that the idea that the City Council hasn't heard from the public about issues, because after all there are these budget workshops, is ingenuous. Please raise your hand if you've ever attended a budget workshop. Raise your hand if you attended the 2005 one. I think the methodology that we're using for actually hearing from the residents about this would never
Michael?
find out what what we're up to.
Thank you. Laura.
It's ironic that you ask this, because actually 2 former department heads in the city who are now retired and who are not subject to repercussions have told me that the proposed 10% cut I had should go even deeper, to 15%. These were department heads in 2 very well-staffed areas and the thing that we need to look at is a couple of things. I sat through the budget workshop with Jerry and Crystal and everybody else a couple years ago, and the interesting thing is in private industry, benefits are typically 30% of salary. I remember David Drucker asking a question. They wanted to add another full-time planning person, and the first question is, what was the salary be? And then, of course, the next question should be, what are the benefits? And actually, if you lump those together, it was 150%. So we really need to look at the benefit side of the equation. And another thing that we also need to look at is the rate we're paying people. Our city manager of 4,500 people gets $160,000, which is more than Solana Beach has 4 times more people.
Thank you. Laura.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. The next question, Jerry, goes to you. 60 seconds. What are the personal characteristics that are needed for a council member who gets things done?
Personal characteristics, I think, includes an ability to listen and to find out what is on people's minds. And it also involves an ability to understand process, because a lot of things that happen in any business and a lot of things that happen in a city government involve a process. So people who are on the council need to understand process as well as some of the technical issues involved. And so those are 2, I think, key characteristics. And additionally, a willingness to get involved in regional issues. I think a number of our council members are very active. They're interested. They're representing Del Mar in regional capacities. And this is the type of thing we need in order to make our interests well served in the larger scheme of things.
Thank you, Jerry. Michael.
Optimism to begin with, ability to say, this is impossible, okay, let's get it done. Of course, the ability to listen, and not only to listen for what someone is saying, but listen to their heart, and listen to what their passion is, and let's listen to what they're commitment to, and listen to what you can trust them for. Understanding the process is absolutely necessary. I agree with Jerry Fennell about this. I would be thrilled to take on all of the problems we've talked about this evening. I would be thrilled because it would be an opportunity. And I think that's what we really need in a council member. Someone who looks at these problems as an opportunity to make a big difference in a short time.
Thank you. Laura.
I agree with what everyone has said, and I'll just, a couple more things I would say is we need people that look at challenges as opportunities. Like, for example, the wastewater treatment, the sewage treatment on San Alejo. We have 800,000 gallons of capacity currently with the City of San Diego that is valued at $16 million that we could sell to the City of Chula Vista. We could use that $16 million to finance the extension of the pipe to the First World Treatment System in San Alejo, and then have money left over to actually upgrade the 21st Street pump station so we don't have an overflow in our lagoon with toxic waste. So those are some of the things that we need to do, is really, instead of taking, oh, we've tried that, we've thought about it, next problem, we really need to question all the assumptions, what's behind them, what we can creatively do, and treat everything as an opportunity to do better.
Thank you, Laura. Crystal?
I also agree with everything that's been said. I agree at the beginning, any good public official has to have a lot of patience, because you have to wade through a lot of information. You have to listen to a lot of people, and you do indeed have to ask a lot of questions and do your homework. So you need patience, you need data, reliable data, and from many sources sometimes to really understand an issue. You need public engagement and input, and then you need a lot of discussion, particularly on big ticket items. For example, on the San Alejo matter, to suggest that we could just sell our capacity and go north misses many other issues that are involved and that have been evaluated by the city. For example, the environmental issues in moving our water and sewer north are significant, and we might not even be able to do it, even if we tried again, which, as I say, we have evaluated that at least 3 times since in the last 10 years. So the issues are complicated, and you have to be willing to do your homework.
Thank you, Crystal. The next question, we start with you, Michael. 60 seconds. What is the best way to maintain and enhance property values in Del Mar?
One thing is to stop this tunnel from being developed. And another thing is to enhance property values. This is interesting. In the market, one of the greatest markets in the world for property value escalation, where we've almost got a guarantee that we don't have we're protected from the kind of recessions that other real estate markets are going to have. I'm not looking at it as a major problem for the city of Del Mar. I think what we need to look at is how we can improve the livability of our city in ways that that go far beyond just the value of the property. I'm looking at the fact that we don't really have a way of maintaining the affordable housing that we actually have in the city now, and that we'll be losing citizens who won't be able to afford their homes because they will be priced out of the market. There's an adverse effect of property value increases. So I don't put it high on my list. I don't think we have to worry about that.
Thank you. Laura.
Actually, property values we've all benefited from. It's been the best investment that any of us have ever made, and we all obviously want to make sure that property values continue to increase. But the thing that we need to really do is manage the risks to that properly. And one of the things, going back to San Alejo sewage, is the fact that because we don't have excess capacity, and the fairgrounds is only reason why they're using our water treatment system is because it's mandated by law. Well, we know what happened with the Attorney General last time they went to get an opinion, and it was not favorable to Del Mar. We've lost millions of dollars in revenues because of our relationship with the fairgrounds on that side. We're about to lose our biggest customer. All they have to do is go to the Attorney General and saying, hey, we've got a hotel we want to build, we want housing units to build, Del Mar doesn't have the capacity, give us relief, and the next thing you know, they provide their own pipe to San Alejo, and we lose our biggest customer and our rates go way up.
Thanks, Laura. Crystal.
Well, Del Mar is very fortunate in that we have the highest property values per square foot in the county, and I believe that's attributable to our development restrictions. We have a community plan that was developed by the residents of this community, has stood the test of time, and although we do occasionally hear complaints about our restrictive zoning, what I hear from many folks after everything is said and done and they've gone through it is that they are glad that they went through the process. They are glad that they have an opportunity to have input into what the development in their neighborhood looks like and how it impacts them. So I believe that what we're already doing does ensure the long-term health of our property values. We do need to manage risk. I would absolutely agree with Ms. DeMarco, and that's why we need to exercise our fiduciary responsibilities to the community, make sure that we manage risk and make prudent investments and stand by the prudent investor standard in all activities undertaken by the City Council and our department heads.
Thank you, Crystal. Jerry?
Protecting property values obviously is very important to each and every one of us that live in Del Mar. My viewpoint is that Del Mar's Design Review Board and floor area ratio ordinances have served our residents very well. And this is validated by the extremely high property values that Crystal alluded to. and it also manifests itself in Del Mar being a very highly sought-after community to live in. People come here because they want to live in Del Mar and enjoy its charm and small town atmosphere. They don't want to live in San Diego. It's just a couple blocks away. So we have the tools. We address neighborhood compatibility, bulk and mass issues.
10 seconds.
And so I support using those tools, protecting our community plan, and keeping our financial status solid as my plan suggests. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. A 60-second question starting with you, Laura. How well is the city following the 2020 vision plan, and how would you change it if you could?
The 2020 vision plan, I think, needs a total revision. And the reason why is if you look at Del Mar, the current population, 50% of the people now who are residents never participated in that process. And if you talk to people who have reviewed the plan, it was a small group, maybe about 30, 40 people who actively participated, and it wasn't really broadly known because, for example, when I tell people the 2020 plan includes provisions for widening the median on Camino Del Mar, planting Torrey Pines trees, and narrowing the northbound lane to one lane, the people on Luneta just go ballistic because it will block their views, it will get even more, cut through traffic through their neighborhood, and it won't solve the real problem on traffic, which is making Del Mar an artery that both residents and commuters will use.
Thank you, Laura. Crystal?
Well, I think Ms. DeMarco may be confusing Vision 2020 with our streetscape plans. The Vision 2020 process was something that we went through with the community several years ago and had, I don't know, something around 200 people at least participate in many, many workshops, asking them what did they want the community to look like in 20 years into the future. The number one item that came out of that process was the undergrounding of utilities, and that's certainly something that the council took very seriously, and we now developed a process to assist neighborhoods who want to voluntarily go through undergrounding by creating assessment districts in their neighborhood. We've had one district go through to completion. We're going to be taking the poles down any day now. And we have other neighborhoods in the community who are very interested in proceeding with undergrounding. But of course, we have to, as always, keep in mind that many of our residents are on fixed incomes. We want to bury the lines, not bury our neighbors.
Thank you, Crystal. Jerry?
The 2020 vision plan, I participated in it, and my recollection is that we had in the neighborhood of 300 residents participating in that. There were lots of suggestions made, and at the end there was a weighting assigned, and in order to come up with what is the most important objective, what is the second, and so forth. And as Crystal pointed out, undergrounding turned out to be the most sought-after objective. Now, we put in place a undergrounding process, and we are in the final stages of completing our first major assessment district here in the Ocean View Pines area, where we undergrounded utilities for 83 residences, and the process is in place for many other neighborhoods
10 seconds.
to do likewise. So there's enormous interest, and I think Vision 2020 has served a very useful purpose.
Thank you, Jerry. Michael?
I'd like to get back to the original question. The 2020 vision plan, I participated in it, and I recall it was 250 total people, and they weren't all participating at the same time. There were these various workshops, and it was the same people you always see participating, and plus a few more. And I remember undergrounding the railroad under Del Mar, and a tunnel under Del Mar was one of the things that came out of that as well. Really? Yes. And other things, and really it was an example of what happens when you have a small group of insiders essentially participating in a planning process, and they don't even allow for the understanding that I-5 is happening, and they're building a 27-lane freeway merger on the south end of town, and what is that going to do about traffic? So I think the 2020 vision process was a journey and an experience of community, but it wasn't anything that we need to look back on to guide us for the future.
Thank you. We have one more question, and before we get to the closing remarks. There's been some discussion of potential incorporation of Del Mar with Solana Beach or Del Mar Heights. Given our small size and financial challenges, where do you stand on such a merger and why? Crystal, you go first.
Thank you, Richard. Well, Del Mar needs to remain independent. That's how we can retain control over our streets, over development in our neighborhoods, and over our natural resources. However, the council does look at and has begun several years ago joint venturing with Solana Beach. We have a shared fire chief. We have shared personnel in our information technology department. We are looking at other ways to share resources. We share engineering services with others. We now have our building inspectors reside in Encinitas. So we're looking for ways to reduce costs and increase efficiencies. And one of the ways we've done that is by partnering with other cities and other agencies. And we will continue to do that because it makes sense. As was mentioned earlier, Del Mar only has about 4,500 residents, but on an average daily basis, we have about 40,000 people in the community because we have 3 million people a year at the fairgrounds and 1 million people at the beach. And of course, that costs the city a great deal in resources.
Crystal, thank you. Jerry?
You know, I'm very much against the notion of merging with the city of San Diego, the city of Solana Beach, or any surrounding cities. I agree with Crystal. Del Mar must remain independent. That was the reason the city was formed in the first instance. We have been doing significant collaboration with the city of Solana Beach and a couple of other cities, and that needs to continue to grow. But we should not give up our control of our own destiny. The Finance Committee actually took a look last year at whether or not it would be financially prudent for the city of Del Mar to annex part of Del Mar Heights. The financial results indicated that that would not be in Del Mar's best interest. So that obviously is not going to be pursued. But we must protect property values and we must avoid merger with another city.
Thank you, Jerry. Michael?
To remain independent, we need to grow up. And what that means is that we need to enroll the kind of a cooperative work with these communities that surround us in participating with as co-leaders in solving problems that we can't solve by ourselves. Some of those problems are economic and a lot of them aren't. I'll give you an example. I think it was 99 when I saw the double tracking of the San Diego Bridge, Railroad Bridge coming up. I went to the Torrey Pines Community Planning Board, my friend Lou Adamo there, and I started working. We put together a committee and enrolled the San Diego City Council member and Supervisor Slater, and as soon as we had a committee that was a coalition of all the coastal communities, and we put a stop to it. That kind of activity is something that we need to do more officially. Now, in terms of dealing with the fact that our fixed costs are so high for such a small community, yeah, we do need to look at ways that we can, through this enlightened, I would say, mature relationship with these other independent entities, maintain our independence and share certain costs.
Thank you, Michael. Now, each of you get 90 seconds. Laura, I've done it to you twice now. I'm so sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Basically, I'm glad, actually, I'm going to try to segue a little bit in the first question to the preceding question. 2020 is an example of something that we really need to revisit because Crystal was nice enough to share that the date of that was 2002. Well, in the last 4 years, we've had a huge population shift. And 2002 was when I was working 12-hour days, flying all over the world, and I wasn't exactly sitting at workshops. And most of the people who are there are retired, and so they're not thinking about the needs of young families and the new demographic coming to Del Mar. So I really think that needs to be looked at. More importantly, what Del Mar needs to do is unite. With San Diego, the Torrey Pines Planning Commission, and really stop the what is planned on SAGNDAG's role right now, which is to put a 1.7-mile tunnel underneath Camino Del Mar.
Thank you, Laura. And now, each of the candidates will get 90 seconds to do a closing remark, beginning with you, Michael.
Out of my commitment to Del Mar and this place I came to because I love nature here, I am running for office. And I don't have a lot of money, and I know my opponents do. I do my best to talk to people when I meet them and to get the word out, but basically I'm not investing a lot of money in this campaign. I want you to know why, however, I'm doing such a foolish thing and such an optimistic thing. This business of this railway tunnel is going to have an awful effect on the Penasquitos wetlands. That's the reason I came here. It's going to do a number on this city that I just don't want to be around here to see. I've seen this council know about this for many years and ignore it. I see no hope of this council actually directing itself to it because they tell us that it's not going to happen. But on August 4th, 2006, the Sandag Transportation Committee announced that, in fact, the tunnels under Del Mar are a priority issue for both NCTD and Sandag, and that the additional track capacity through Del Mar is necessary to relieve the bottleneck that would be caused by increasing the freight traffic through this town. Now, I know that there are other solutions to transportation that are better than a coastal rail corridor track that doesn't serve any of the people that live in the region. So I want a council to take this on, and I want to be responsible to take on the leadership that solves this and other similar problems.
Thank you, Michael. Jerry.
My top priority, if I'm reelected, will be implementation of my financial plan for the city of Del Mar. This is including the 20-year capital finance plan that I made reference to earlier, which will not involve any unnecessary staff reductions and will not involve any new taxes, but it will control spending at a predetermined rate going forward. I remain quite optimistic, particularly when my plans are implemented, about the future financial situation for our city. My leadership skills, I believe, have been clearly demonstrated during my 4 years on City Council. You've watched me in action and know firsthand how I operate. I will use this valuable City Council experience to help retain the character and charm of our city, to help revitalize our village, to keep our beaches safe and clean, to ensure that our city remains financially strong, and to ensure that resident services are not eliminated. I think that's a very pessimistic solution to a non-problem. And to prevent tunnels from under Del Mar. The City Council position in opposition to that suggestion could not be more clear. My medical diagnosis remains optimistic. I thank my family and many friends and neighbors who've encouraged me to remain in this campaign for re-election. I ask for your vote, and a special thank you to the Hot Topics and Channel 66 staff.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Laura.
It's very difficult for me to state all the things that I'd like to do for this city if I'm elected, if I have the honor of your vote tonight or on November 7th. If you go to my website, www.laurademarco for City Council, you'll see things in much more detail than we can get out here. But what's really important is to maintain our quality of life. I'm glad to hear that Jerry has addressed the rate of spending issue, because at that current rate, even the financial forecast I have here, there's a crossover point beyond which we're going to be operating in the red. So I'm glad to hear that Jerry's addressing this and bringing this to the fore. The capital spending issue still remains a huge problem. We need, not only, in addition to what Jerry's talking about, is fiscal impact analysis that needs to be required for every decision. In 2000, when the council made the decision to take the Torrey Pines Bridge for $1 and got a $12 million to $23 million in liability, $23 million for the retrofit and $12 million for the new bridge, they took on the largest capital spending project in the history of this town without a vote of the people. And I'll tell you, if we ever do that again, there should be recalls. because that money could be, you talk about the 2020 undergrounding, we could have used all that money to underground the entire town instead of burdening a lot of people on the fixed income side right now who are part of the North Hills undergrounding district that I'm part of. Some of them can't even afford to have their property taxes raised by $1,000.
Thank you, Laura. Crystal?
Thank you, Richard. And again, I want to add my thanks to the production team for having us here this evening. We've got two challengers here trying to unseat two effective and well-respected incumbents. And so what we've heard tonight from Ms. DeMarco and Mr. Wynn is a great deal of misinformation. They've thrown a lot of mud on the wall tonight, hoping that some of it will stick. And of course, I don't have time in the minute that I have left to rebut all of that information, but I can certainly tell you that we would not have taken on the responsibility for the Torrey Pines Bridge had we not had 100% financing. I remain confident that we will have 100% financing at the time that bridge is retrofitted. With regard to the tunnels, you've already heard Councilmember Fennell tell you that the council's position is against any tunnel under Del Mar. There's no money in the Sandag budgets right now for that. There is, however, a study going on looking at the alignment along the entire corridor in order to avoid piecemeal planning. So, at any rate, I want to get back to what I offer you. I've demonstrated over 8 years an ability to listen to the community and to act responsibly on behalf of the community. I work well with my fellow council members, and as I noted earlier, we have achieved much since I've been on the City Council through that working together. I'm proud to have many endorsements, including the Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Del Mar Firefighters Association, Sierra Club, the Friends of the San Diego River Valley, and many others, including elected officials and Del Mar residents. So I ask for your vote on November 7th, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, candidates, for a very informative forum, and thank you for watching this Hot Topics election special. And don't forget to look for our next program where I'll be interviewing the candidates individually. The Hot Topics election special program will air on Channel 66 Fridays at 8 p.m., Monday at 11 a.m., and Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. You can watch anytime via the internet from the Del Mar TV website. And remember, the most important thing is to get out and vote on Tuesday, November the 7th. Tuesday, November the 7th. So, till next time, I'm your host, Richard Levesque. Thank you.